All right, well, thank you. Good morning. My name is Roger Downs. I'm the Conservation Director for the Sierra Club Atlantic chapter. And I want to begin by saying that this request for Governor Cuomo to deny the 401 water quality certification for the Constitution Pipeline, this is not a new request. We've been asking this for the better part of a year. But what is new is the urgency to do it now. We have all been praising the DEC for the deliberate and very cautious approach that they've taken to this pipeline. There are tremendous and severe impacts to the state's water quality. And we know that they have taken as much time as they feel that they need to make the right decision here. But that delay, while it's helped us for a while, now the delay hurts us. As the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission is now moving forward and allowing the Constitution Pipeline Company to clear trees and do other construction-related activities, even though the company doesn't have its full federal permits or the state certification. And that is a real problem. DEC does not have to make a decision until late April, but we are asking to make that now. Today, to highlight this broken FERC process and to talk about some of the damaging tree clearing that is going on, we have Anne Marie Gardy, attorney with Stop the Pipeline, Marian Zephyr, who is a landowner whose family has a maple sugaring operation that, as we speak, is holding off logging crews that are trying to plow through their property. We have Dan and Laura Jean Brignoli, who are landowners in New York, potentially facing the same predicament, and they are in the pathway in the pipe. And we have Wes Gillingham, who is the program manager for Catskill Mountain Keeper. Really quickly, some backgrounds. The Constitution Pipeline is a joint venture between the Williams Company and Cabot Oil Companies. This is a 30-inch pipe that would run from the fracking fields of Susquehanna County, Pennsylvania, up to Schoharie, New York, through the Susquehanna River Basin, tearing a scar through the western slope of the Catskills. This is going to destroy over 1,800 acres of land. It will cross 277 streams at grade. We are tremendously concerned about that. Clear 700,000 trees that could have a direct impact on water quality and destroy 90 acres of wetlands. This has been a 4-year fight, but I think for the DEC, in some ways, this has been a decades-long problem and fight with pipeline developers. In the 90s, the DEC certified a 401 quality review for the Iroquois pipeline. And the fallout from that were some criminal convictions and some what they describe as catastrophic erosion events. In the 2000s, they had the same problem with Millennium Pipeline. They certified that pipeline, and they had the same impacts. Part of what DEC is grappling with right now is a broken FERC process, and that there's tremendous pressure on them right now. So to talk about that broken FERC process and the ongoing litigation that we have is Anne Marie Gardy.
Hi. It may or may not surprise everybody here today, but FERC and the pipeline companies have been breaking state and federal laws for years now. So since nobody was watching, they, quote, got away with murder. Now lots of people are watching pipelines, us included. And we see that FERC works hand in glove with the pipeline companies. And when they do that, they undermine the public's rights, our powers, and our concerns. FERC systematically and regularly, illegally expands its powers, diminishing people's property rights. And we have examples here today, and those property owners will go into detail about that. FERC also usurps state powers. And so as Roger just explained, this all really hinges on the state's right to deny a 401 water quality certificate, and which could stop the project. But FERC didn't wait for that 401 water quality certificate. Back in 2014, they granted a conditional certificate of public convenience and necessity that allowed the pipeline company to come in and take people's property before the project was actually authorized to proceed. And we, Stop the Pipeline, believes that that's a Fifth Amendment due process violation. And as we also know, they just recently did something like that again with allowing tree cutting to go ahead without the right of the state to decide first. So we know that there are lots of problems, and the question is, are there solutions to these problems? So one of the things that's happened recently is that we have finally been able to initiate litigation against FERC. Those of us who appealed the FERC certificate had to wait 14 months to get into a federal court of appeals. That's because FERC has a little trick of keeping us out of court, which is another due process violation that all of us suffer, not only here in New York, but across the United States. So right now, there are 2 petitions for review in the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. The first one is by Earth Justice, who represents Catskill Mountain Keeper, Sierra Club, and a few other nonprofits. Their main complaint, not their only complaint, but one of their main complaints is a NEPA, National Environmental Policy Act challenge, that FERC doesn't comply with NEPA. And one of the main things that FERC doesn't do, not only with this pipeline, but with many pipelines, is it doesn't consider the upstream impacts. It refuses to consider all of the fracking and the impacts of fracking that are required in order to fill these pipelines with gas. It says that that's not its concern, but when it is approving hundreds, literally tens or hundreds of pipelines, all of those pipelines need to be filled with gas, and that has an impact, and they need to consider that during this environmental review. Earth Justice has also requested a stay of proceedings, a stop to the proceedings during the petition for review. The second set of litigations is being undertaken by the Pace Environmental Litigation Clinic on behalf of Stop the Pipeline. So our main complaint with FERC, one of 3 complaints, is that FERC violated federal statute, the Clean Water Act, and the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution by certifying the project before it had the 401 water quality certificate. Again, this allowed the pipeline company to take people's property before it was known if the project would proceed. And it also, in that way, kept people from challenging the validity of the certificate when they were in eminent domain proceedings. FERC then violates our due process rights even more by issuing a tolling order, which keeps us out of federal court. And they did this and delayed our ability to challenge them for a full year longer than they were supposed to. So they locked the courthouse doors on us. And we're going to challenge their repeated use of that trick so that what would happen would not only affect us, but would affect all pipelines thereafter if we were to succeed. It's a big challenge. Finally, we believe that FERC approved this project without showing any need for it. There was no evidence in the record that there was a market need for this project. All there was a contract between parties that are building the pipeline. Cabot Oil and Gas, that's drilling for the gas, is selling gas to itself, becomes a shipper, and is then part owner, a 25% owner of the pipeline. It's entirely a speculative project with no end users. This is contrary to the terms of the Natural Gas Act, which says there's supposed to be substantial evidence for something like this to happen. In effect, all that Cabot and this project are doing is replacing some people's gas with theirs, and that fact, it was never considered by FERC. So that's the legal framework of what's going on here. So while we were still locked out of court, as all of you know, the pipeline company asked for a partial notice to proceed, asking to cut down all of the trees along the entire 124-mile route before they had the 401 water quality certificate from New York State. So Stop the Pipeline, Catskill Mountain Keeper, Sierra Club, all the other groups objected strenuously to FERC, and Stop the Pipeline also asked the Attorney General to step forward and enter into this controversy, because basically the company was trying to take away an important state right by doing this. And the Attorney General did file a strenuous objection to the notice to proceed. And what happened was rather amazing in a way, because we were the first people ever to stop a notice to proceed. Now, we may not have stopped them in Pennsylvania, but we actually won a huge victory, which is that we stopped FERC from allowing the pipeline company to cut trees along 99 miles of the route. And this has never happened before. And the reason why they were stopped was because we opposed it so strenuously, and because FERC knows that it's illegally dealing with the Clean Water Act, and it saw that it was under this kind of scrutiny and wouldn't have been able to continue and would have lost in court. But FERC segmented the project and allowed the construction, the destruction to proceed with the tree clearing in Pennsylvania, and said no in New York, and then it avoided that legal battle that it would have lost in New York. So it seems that in all of this that's going on here, what all of these issues really revolve around the 401. All of the things that have been talked about here in terms of this legal discussion, except for the NEPA claims. The Clean Water Act establishes a balance between state and federal power. And in this situation, the New York's DEC is acting under federal authority. It's a state agency, but it is on par with FERC. And FERC is trying to usurp the power of the state by saying that it's in charge of the process. But in fact, as proved by what FERC just did, DEC preempts FERC, not the other way around. DEC has the power to deny the project and stop the project. FERC doesn't have a right to say anything about the 401, and that's why it is acting illegally. So we're in this state and federal power struggle. More than anything else, that's what's going on right now. And we, as part of our ask to the DEC, there is the emotional side of it, of illegal actions, but there is an important state issue going on, which is that the states have the power to deny under the 401, and Governor Cuomo has the right now to step up, not just for New York State, but for all states across the United States who are being dominated by FERC in illegal ways, and stop this project and put FERC back in its place. He can reestablish the proper balance under the Clean Water Act between the states and federal governments by denying the 401 water quality certificate. And that's what we are asking him to do. We are asking him to put FERC in its proper position by denying it, and to do it now for all the reasons that Roger said. So I think that's what I wanted to say. And then we'll get into the specifics here with Marianne.
Hi, I'm Marianne Zephyr. I'm a property owner in New Milford, Pennsylvania, Susquehanna County, and we have been dealing with the gas companies drilling and fracking and coming through for years now, over 5 years, and now the Constitution is trying to come through us. We have not signed up. We do not want it. We tried to work with them to reroute around us, and when they got eminent domain, they would not even work with us. Now they're coming through our property, so we've been protesting and trying to keep them out. My family does own a maple business. My sister Kathy Holleran and her children have the North Hartford maple, and they are tapping trees. We had a little bit of early warm weather, so it has started to run, and they are already starting to boil. And March is their busiest season, and it's just a small family business, but there's a lot of trees on our property that we do tap, along with some other properties that they tap. But the property is a family property. My parents bought it. They handed it down to us children, and they expected the grandchildren and great-grandchildren to build houses in the fields and live on the property, and the pipeline will cut across 2 of the prime fields to do that, and then directly through all the woods, which are where the maple trees are. And we've tried to hold them off because they don't have the right to build the pipeline yet in New York. So we don't see why they should cut our trees until they have the whole pipeline settled. On top of that, they haven't even cut the other areas in Pennsylvania that have signed up, that they can go cut. They haven't done that yet. Yet our little 1,000 feet of trees, they're trying to come through when we have not signed up by eminent domain. The state police in Pennsylvania had stopped them once when we tried to hold them off. Now we have court hearing tomorrow in Scranton. The family has to be there in order to fight it again. And if we get voted down tomorrow, they could be cutting our trees as early as Saturday, which is going to break our heart. And I don't want to see that happen. So I would like to see the governor of New York, please, if you can stop it in your state. Our governor didn't support us at all and has not helped. And if you could stop it in your state, it would stop it in our state. And it would hold them off, and we could save our trees, save our family property, which is exactly what we're trying to do. We're not trying to stop everything all over. We just want to save our property. Thank you very much.
And I'd like to introduce Dan and Laura Jean Brignoli. They are Delaware County landowners that are facing a very similar circumstance. So would you like to come and speak?
Good afternoon. We live in Delaware County, in town of Davenport, in this great state of New York, and we've been faced with eminent domain. We live on a highly steep, very wooded area on a mountain. And what's going to happen with the proposed Constitution pipeline, it's going to cross a stream that runs through our property, and it's going to clear cut almost 2 acres of heavily wooded area. I would say in excess of 200 or 300 trees. There's a lot of trees there. There's a lot of concerns. When you take that many trees down, what you're doing is you're taking the infrastructure away from that ground. And what concerns me so much is that in the past 20 years, we've had 3 catastrophic incidents on our hill in which our property and our road has been totally wiped out. As long as it's been as much as a week and a half that we were not able to get to our property other than walking. So we are concerned. And that concerns one thing, when we have big snow packs or when we have heavy spring thaws and heavy rains, we're concerned because we've seen it happen 3 times. We have documented pictures that will substantiate this. And it's about the trees, and it's about the water, and it's about the fact that I'd like to sign 1 tree. Well, that wouldn't be good. But 700,000 trees is a lot of trees, is a lot of infrastructure, and we don't think it is really necessary.
Another part to this is we've had that property almost 4 decades, and it's located on a mountain. It's kind of our Camelot. We together built our own home, and we only cut down a few trees to place that home there. And over the last 38 years, we've stocked our pond with bass, and we never, over those 38 years, get tired of just spontaneously let's go for a walk in the woods. You know, pack a little bag, a sandwich, crackers. The family, the kids, we've done this for decades. We never get tired of the spring when the snow and ice thaws from the pond, watching the bags of pollywogs turn into frogs, or looking for the first bass. Where this pipeline is located is adjacent to our house, our well, our pond, our creek, and our small organic family garden. These photos are, you know, they substantiate what we've already experienced with our trees there. When those trees are taken away, our concern is that it's so forceful that it may also pull the pipeline out of the ground, so that's another concern. But at the end of the day, we're just one family. There are many families in our similar situation. But that water, that silt, that debris, which you can see in these photos, and we've showed them to FERC, we've showed them to everyone, and they seem to turn, you know, a blind eye. This ultimately, where we live, goes down into the Charlotte Creek. That Charlotte Creek goes into the Susquehanna, and again, at the end of the day, it's not just us. It then dumps into the Chesapeake Bay. So, and we're just one on that route. So this water erosion, this silt, this is a big problem. You know, we can take it personally and cry and talk about it all we want, but this is not just us. It's pretty global, and I don't think anyone really understands that. You know, your road will be back in 2 weeks. The silt, again, it's just tremendous, tremendous erosion, and it's going to happen. There's no question when you take out hundreds of trees. And again, it dumps into the Charlotte Creek, which goes into the Susquehanna, and has been going into the Chesapeake Bay. So this is something that really needs to be thought about, and we're just pleading for Governor Cuomo to deny this water certificate because we've seen what's happened, and it's devastating. And there aren't enough words to say how horrible it's going to be. So we're just pleading that he denies that 401. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Wes Gillingham. I'm the program director for Catskill Mountain Keeper. So as my colleagues have pointed out, what we have here is this really long process that was instigated by FERC and Williams and Cabot. We went through the whole sideshow of hearings, but what you have here is a rogue agency in the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And you have a federal agency that's stepping on state rights, stepping on landowner rights, and stepping on basically the future of New York's energy portfolio. Right now, we need to be putting all of our investment in renewables, not into this fossil fuel invasion that's happening in New York and multiple other states. Anne Marie very eloquently pointed out that it stopped temporarily in New York. And it stopped because they got ahead of themselves. They got ahead of basic law, and they got ahead of basic legitimacy in this. Thousands of people made comments, including the New York State DEC, that said their construction plan is not adequate. It was going to impact streams. It was going to impact forests and fragment an important part of the ecosystem of New York State. FERC ignored all of that. Didn't grant a rehearing to multiple organizations. Fought the stay in Pennsylvania and is impacting landowners who have a life invested in their property. Again, and I'm going to use a technical term here. You know, Anne Marie eloquently talked about the legal balances. Basically, and I'll say it real slow so everybody can get it, the FERC process sucks. It's not good for landowners. It's not good for states' rights and people who are working for the state to protect our water. And it's not good for the nation. And it's happening not just in New York, all over the country. There's multiple. There's the Ned pipeline that they want to put on top of this. There's the Dominion Improvement Project. They're expanding with compressor stations across the Millennium Pipeline. Again, I'll repeat that. The FERC process sucks for all of us, and it needs to change. And Governor Cuomo has the power to do that. And he, as a climate leader, he talks about climate. It's time to stand up, protect our water. He needs to protect our water. It's the right thing to do. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Pennsylvania, 25 miles, how much is done, so to speak, as of this point?
They've been working on, as of their report on Tuesday, they had been working up to 10 miles. It doesn't mean that they've done all 10 miles, but they've
started.
I was told about 7.5 they've gotten done. And that's all. They haven't even done the people around us. But they're trying to get on us, you know.
Yeah, they've actually probably spent more time with lawyers trying to get an injunction against these landowners and put them under the threat and bully them to scare them. Meanwhile, people from all over the country are coming to their property as a sign of how broken this system is, and they're trying to make them liable for the people even coming on their property.
I think
Which court has the state request?
Second Circuit Court of Appeals.
I think it's also important to note that the entire 25-mile route through Pennsylvania is within New York's watershed, within the Susquehanna watershed, so that indeed if there are massive erosion events, if there are water quality violations that come from this premature cutting, it will flow into the Susquehanna, and then the Susquehanna makes a great U back into New York and flows through Binghamton. So, hundreds of thousands of people rely on that water once it passes this route. So there are significant things to consider for New York.
Deadline for the 401?
End of April, last week of April,
That's a date certain, they have to do something.
unless something else happens.
Right.
A date certain at this point, but yeah.
Right.
So the Second Circuit Court of Appeals is the court which I believe it's the only Circuit Court of Appeals in the U.S. that has upheld the denial of a 401 water quality certificate. So they have already claimed jurisdiction on the 401 and already upheld a state's right to deny a project after FERC has approved it. So that's important to note, too.
Any other questions? Well, I want to thank everyone for coming.